Zenephia Evans earned her PhD from Purdue University in cell and developmental biology. During her professional career at Purdue, she has served as biological sciences faculty lecturer, director of the Science Diversity Office, and is currently an associate dean of students in the Office of the Dean of Students. Dr. Evans is an involved Boilermaker and earned many recognitions, including the Special Boilermaker, Frederick Hovde Faculty Fellow of the Year, Helen B. Schliemann Gold Medallion Honoree, One Brick Higher, and Title IX awardee at Purdue. In addition, she was named a YWCA Salute to Women honoree and continues to serve on boards in a local community. Dr. Evans has advised several clubs over the years and is now serving as the advisor to the Boiler Support Network and continues to serve as the Senior Faculty Fellow in Earhart Hall. So without further ado, Dr. Zenephia Evans. Thank you.
Do me a favor real quick. How many of you have cell phones? Take out your cell phone. And I want you to go to photo mode. And I want you to do a selfie. So turn it around so you can look. And did you hear the song that we played in the beginning?
I did.
What was the song? Man in the mirror. Okay, we're gonna make this inclusive, and we're gonna say person in the mirror. Okay? So look at that person in your. Michael didn't have a cell phone back in his day when he made this song, so we're gonna improvise here. So look at the person in the mirror. Are you looking? Do you know who is looking back at you?
Myself.
Mm-hmm. Do you know who's looking back at you? Do you know how you got, we're not finished with the cell phone. Do you know how you got to this point? Do you know the next steps and leaps that you need to take to be better? Do you know your strengths? Do you know your challenges? Do you know when to pivot and when to reframe? Okay, you can stop looking at the person in the mirror. Right? So when we talk about intrapersonal awareness and development, it's all about you. It involves nobody else. So when I think about the intrapersonal, do you know you? And at this point in my life, because I'm a couple of years older than you are, just a couple, but at this point in my life, nobody should be able to tell me something about myself that I don't already know. It should not come as a surprise to me when my friends say, you're not the most organized person in the world. And it doesn't. Because they've been to my house. If you've ever been to my office, that's not my thing. But I get the job done, right? So what we're talking about when we talk about intrapersonal development is yours. It's owned by you, it's fashioned by you, it is shaped by you, it is shaped for you. You. So when I wake up every morning and I take a look at that person in the mirror, I ask myself. Now, you can ask yourself these questions. I'm not telling you to answer. Or if you do answer, don't tell anybody, because then that's a whole nother thing, right? So ask yourself, what can I do today that will allow me to know me better than anybody else? Right? Your parents help to shape you and form you. But at some point, you come out of that mold. And then as you continue on your career path, you go down different different steps and leaps to get to the point of where you want to be. So, in simple terms, intrapersonal awareness, do you know who you're looking at in the mirror? Since we're all at Purdue, I had to give you a formal definition, and I'll read the definition that I picked up off of Webster. Intrapersonal is something that exists within you. It is having an awareness of how you affect the world around you. It is not about what a group of people think. It is what you think. Your perception of anything and everything around you. We all have to work on our intrapersonal development. And as I worked on my intrapersonal development, I had some mentors that challenged me to no end. Right? And these mentors would pose questions to me that initially I avoided answering because I didn't have an answer. And I didn't have an answer because I wasn't ready to self-reflect. And then, when I had an answer sometimes, I was embarrassed about that answer, or ashamed that I didn't put in an exerted effort to know me, right? And so those mentors early on would ask questions. How do you communicate with you about you? How do you communicate for you to you? How do you support you for you? And how do you advocate to you for you? I was like, that's a lot of yous that I got to deal with in that space, right? But that's what it boils down to. If you don't communicate with you about you, then other people can write that narrative. And I'm never going to give anybody that much power over me in my intrapersonal development. I was reading something last night. There's a soccer player, Carson Pickett. Have any of you heard of Carson Pickett? She's a female soccer player. And Carson was born without an arm from her elbow down. So she's a person with a malformed limb. But she's a soccer player. She played soccer in college, now playing professionally. But one of the things Carson Pickett said was this: I will not allow you to change my sky into my ceiling. Right? Because as a child, she never thought there was anything she couldn't do because she didn't have half of her arm. So when I think about intrapersonal awareness and development, I think about that. If it's my sky and you limit me by making it my ceiling, then I'm giving you that power. So how do I make sure that I retain the power for my intrapersonal development? So as I thought about these, there are a couple of things that when I think about intrapersonal awareness and development, and I didn't know, I tried to make an abbreviation with them. I don't know if it makes sense, but I'm going to call it, I don't know how you pronounce this, MEECCD, MEEST. I just made that up, so it's not, I know it's not a word, it won't be found in Webster, so I got it. But when I think about them, I had to learn how to manage my self-motivation. That's the M. I had to learn how to manage my self-efficiency. That's the second E. First E. The second E is I had to learn how to manage my self-esteem. I had to learn to manage my self-confidence. I had to learn to manage my self-control. And I have to learn to manage my self-discipline. Because I can tell you, the younger version of me was a hothead. You said something to me that I didn't like, you heard some words that they don't mention in church on Sunday, right? But I had to learn how to control that because I gave you that power for me to react. And I remember the first time, the other thing about, I was a very, very observant child too. So if you did something to me, like if my mom would spank me or something, I'd be waiting, looking to see what I could do to get back at her, right? And one of the things that my mother said to me was this: you spend time and energy trying to navigate what I'm going to do next, when you should be working on thinking about what you need to do not to be in trouble. And usually it wasn't me getting in trouble, my sister got in trouble, but she dragged me along, right? And I would say to my mom, but I wasn't gonna go, but she dragged me along. And she said, but your development, you had to say, you had 2 feet. While she was dragging you, you could have sat down, right? Because she couldn't pick you up. You made the decision to walk with her into that space. So we could not say, my sister made me do it. No, you did that. Your sister was going to do this. You decided to follow, so don't put it back on your sister. And I was like, but that's not right. Right? And so I learned that. I heard that over and over in my life. And so now when I hear people say, so-and-so made me mad. Go back to our MCCD, right? Your self-discipline. They did what they did. That was in their intrapersonal space. As it entered your space, you get to control how you respond. So you never hear me say that about people. They made me mad, right? So you have that self-discipline, you have to decide what to do. So when I talk to people and they say things that, I don't particularly like, I have 2 choices. Respond or not. And so I'll give you an example. The other day I was in the store and this man said some words that weren't very nice and jumped in the line in front of me, right? And I had been waiting and I was tired, I was hot, and I was hungry. And those are 3 things that when I'm those 3 things in that combination, it's a whole different me that's going to come out into that space. You're shaking your head like, yeah, I feel you on that one, right? And so I said to him, sir, we can handle this 1 or 2 ways. I can be the nice southern girl that I am most days of the week, or I can turn this thing into the wicked witch of the west. Which one do you want to deal with, right? He looked at me when I said that and he politely got behind me in the line, right? So the younger version of me, I probably would have been in jail because they would have been calling the police and it would have been, I would have thrown my groceries at him and all of this stuff would have happened, right? But that self-discipline I learned over time, I told him we can navigate this 1 or 2 ways, very politely. That was part of my intrapersonal development and growth. And when I got to that stage, the first day that I got to that stage that I could respond professionally, I was like, yes, right? Because again, it's my self-discipline. Because I always think about who's going to see me when I'm doing what I didn't need to do because somebody did something they weren't supposed to do and I followed that up by doing something that I didn't need to do, right? Who's going to be in that space judging me in that moment? And what opportunities might I lose because I didn't have the self-discipline to do what needed to be done in that time and space? So do you have the ability and do you have the normal day-to-day to educate you about you? That to me defines intrapersonal development. How do you educate you about you? And Nelson Mandela said something that I really, really like. Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world. Do you have, that's the end of the quote by Nelson Mandela, but questions to you. Do you have the self-awareness to understand you, perceive you, accept you in your authenticity? As you grow and develop in this arena, you understand that it's critical to success in all aspects of life. Your relationships, your family, your happiness, and your work. So you have to think about how you are aware of your thoughts, your habits, your ways of learning, your ways of analyzing, and your ways of pivoting. And only you can define those. When you're driving in the GPS and you make that wrong turn, the GPS is telling you to go right and you go left, and the GPS says what? You're calculating, you're calculating. You are your recalculator. The only person that can do this is you. So, a couple of things. Only you can manage your emotions, right? We talked about that a little bit earlier. And how do you do this? The intrapersonal means knowing your strengths and challenges in order to navigate your stress and make the most of your time. How do you reflect and plan? How do you reflect on what you did today? Did it meet your approval, or do you need to change it? How do you become mindful about your decisions? Mindfulness is really important because you have to think about what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're going to do it, for how long you're going to do it, and if you even need to do it. How do you challenge yourself? How do you challenge yourself? How do you define your happy, your sad, your mad, your good days? How do you define those moments? And that allows you to get a handle on your situation. How do you understand you and allow some compassion for you in these spaces? And be optimistic, right? Because I wake up every day, and one of the things that I want to leave you with is as I think about this, my grandfather used to say, yesterday was history, tomorrow's the future, today is your present. How are you going to use it? We're all happy to get presents for our birthday, for holidays, but today is your present. How will you use it? So that's my optimistic side. Now there's some days, like the other day, I didn't get in bed till like after 1 o'clock and I had to be up at 4:30. I didn't wake out the bed just happy, bubble, bubble, right? But I was still optimistic, right? About what I could do with that day that I had in front of me. How do you control your emotions? That was the hardest one for me, I'll tell you, right? So I'm just going to be clear. That was the hardest one for me, because you say something to me that I don't like, I'm going to go off. I had to learn to control that. And I had to think about it, and if you see me some days and I'm walking away from somebody going proportion, that's my way of saying I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. I'm going to listen and then I'm going to walk away. So how do you keep that balance and keep that proportion of things that you're thinking about? And how do you increase your self-discipline and taking the action? The Dalai Lama says something that I really like. In order to carry a positive action, we must develop here a positive vision. What is your vision for your interpersonal awareness and development? What is the guide to your future? Intrapersonal awareness and development. You got to look at that person in the mirror. You got to ask them to change their ways. No message could have been any clearer. Take a look at yourself and make that. I was like, I led y'all right up to the point of the song, right? And make that change. So I started with that song and I end with that song. And you've probably heard these words before, and I'll end with one of my favorite quotes. Watch your thoughts, because they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, because they become your habits. Watch your habits, for they become your character. And watch your character, because it becomes your destiny. Intrapersonal awareness and development. Keep looking at that person in the mirror. Thank you.